we're back. Another episode, Good Things Auto, this time on the 180SX. We are going to finally tear into it and figure out where the water's going. So, fingers crossed it's not too bad. We only have like 2 weeks to do this. The harness is on the way. The head gasket's on the way. Let's jump right in. I'm fully expecting the pan to have a bunch of water in it. We were putting so much water in it during the event in Japan, and it was disappearing. So, well, I really didn't expect that. That is normal oil. We were putting like a liter a day in this thing. Was it really burning it all off? Oh God, I hope it's not burning it off. I really wanted it to be in the oil. I really hope it's not like side of the cylinder wall. Oh, the next step is a exhaust gas tester for the radiator. Pretty self-explanatory here. That plugs the rad. This goes in it. And then you pour fluid into here. And it will, if you have an issue, change color. A little bit of this stuff. The fact that it moves so much when I rev already worries me. It only took about 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and that's green. I could go out and drive it on that 98 octane with that bad head gasket, with that exhaust gas in the cooling system, with the coolant loss. That being said, we all know this is not your normal SR20 with the 2.2 and all the really nice things. So I don't want to hurt it. We'll go ahead and jump in and do a head gasket real quick, and then the new engine harness and the ECU. So we got a lot to do and only a little time. I'm trying to get this done in like a month. All right, guys, let's get started. Look at all the heat shielding this guy did to the turbo. We've got bolted to the hot side in 2 places. I think that's pretty dang cool. Feed line and the drain lines are like super wrapped. Another shield right here, blocking the firewall and wiring and stuff like that. Even like the O2 line and these brake hard lines are wrapped. So that's a little baby exhaust. We're gonna have to maybe make that nicer as well. And she's out. Look at that thing. This is not a normal TD06 like you would think. This is actually a T67 25G. So genuinely, this is normally a turbocharger you see on like a 1JZ. The 2.2 actually spools it really well, as y'all saw in previous videos. Spicy, right? So I'm gonna leave it for now, even though since it is a journal bearing, it's not spinning entirely well, but zero shaft play, really feels healthy as hell. So we're gonna keep running it. With the turbo out, you can really see how high quality this build really is. I mean, everything has heat shrink. Look at the motor mount down there. Look at the drain lines, these wastegate lines running up. Everything is just designed around this being hot as hell. On initial inspection, I mean, holy crap, these cams look brand new. I mean, brand fucking new. And then you can tell on this one, there's a little bit of movement there, but either that one came loose at some point or they adjusted it a bunch of different times and locked it down when tuning, because that one is actually degreed a little bit out. Something I find interesting is it only has the single guide. It's not ground for dual guide shims. I don't know if that's something that they just don't do in Japan and something we do here, but this had a BR with the HKSF con, so it was a bit of a rocker killer already. I don't know. We are moving right along here. As you can see, most of the wiring is out of the way. I have just brought the motor up to TDC. As you can tell, we are at the second pin on the crank pulley there. This dowel is facing vertically, and that one is off at like 11 o'clock. I just want to go ahead and mark that one and this one so that when we throw it all back together after I skim this head, it's all in time. Again, the cheater's method for this is how many pins are between these two yellow lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 pins, and you'll know everything is in time. Honestly, this thing is really easily put together. I mean, it's like not as hard as an M52 so far, which is nice. And then once those bolts are out, you can remove your cast unit. Next is that wastegate all the way down there. It's got these 4 12mm bolts, and then it's also like braced to the engine block. So I gotta drop the wastegate off, and then I can get to that bolt, it looks like, to remove the bracket. A little reference, look how high quality these fittings are. I mean, these are lines from the late 90s, early 2000s. All right, super old school Gretty unit, but super good condition overall. Gaskets in good condition, got this little spacer, little dump tube. I mean, it's a huge, huge unit, but it probably flows a bunch. And then look at that support bracket. I mean, between this one and the one on top that holds the actual upper part of the manifold and the turbo, this thing's never gonna crack. Ever, I don't think. It's very sturdy. All right, ooh, those are not very tight. Interesting. Wow. Okay, caps are out and this cam's ready to pull. This thing is in really good condition, all things considered. Let's pop this gear off, make it easy to get it out of the chain, and we'll pull this out and set it over on the table with everything else. Dang, that thing's pretty stuck on there. All right. Beautiful Tomy Japan 260 cam. And the exhaust cam's out. I mean, these things really are spotless. Now, we can dive into pulling out all of these rockers and then the shims, making sure that those shims stay in their exact. Starting with the intake side, I'll go ahead and grab this first rocker just to show you guys what it looks like underneath. So, these are definitely not a dual guide shim setup. This is an OEM rocker setup in terms of those shims. I would change those out, but I'm guessing that these lifters are shimmed and not hydraulic. And if that's the case, then I would have to lash and do all sorts of work, and I don't want to, so we will just leave these as is, if so. Dang. We will put it in its home right next to it. And that's what we'll do for all of them. All right, and the final thing, which you cannot mix up, are the actual lifters themselves. Now, these are hydraulic normally. These could be shimmed, so we'll find out, I guess, as we pull them out and take them apart, but that came out pretty easily. All right, we got that intake manifold hose off right there. I ended up having to press with a pry bar from here and here a bunch to squeeze it off because I've got the OEM bracing, and that kind of blocked me from getting in there. Oh my God, this thing is so old. Look at that. We're bringing this thing back from the dead. And I just dug a third fan out of this car that was tucked up in there with that wiring. Seriously, and look, this was just an old Nissan accessory fan as well. Both of those were between the clutch fan and the radiator. The stock old radiator. I'm waiting for someone to help me pull this head off, so, like, physically lift. So, for now, let's get this exhaust manifold off because it's really intense. So, most of the bolts are easy to reach, of course, but look at this secondary brace here. It's got a lot of bracing on the top and then on the bottom, as y'all remember, down there on the wastegate. This, of course, was for the EGT. Then we have some sort of a brace patch, something welded right here as well. Who knows? Look at this thing. Nice brace, man. This thing really is incredible. I mean, look how flat and clean and thick that flange is. And then we got beefy runners, great wastegate priority. I don't see any cracks or any issues. I mean, those welds could be a little better there, but everything else is pretty freaking good. Like I said, this engine was competing in 2012, driving grassroots events and things like that, who knows how long before. The car itself was built in 2008. And that's like really good condition too. I mean, there is very little miles on this build. Okay, head studs. We're gonna do this in a couple steps so that we don't crack the head. And we're doing it in reverse order of the normal torquing sequence. So, SR20, start at 10, 9, 8, 7, blah, blah, blah. Cool, starting at the back of the head. All right, you know, that was a big click, so we'll do that and see. Dang, that is such a long head stud. All right, we're loose. Everything's done. We just gotta wait for someone to help me lift this head off. Or I thought I was gonna wait for someone to help, but I'm impatient. So this is what I came up with. It's sleeved. Look at this, it's sleeved. I'm not seeing any noticeable damage in there. Fingers crossed, we'll clean that up eventually and do a feeler gauge on it. But let's go ahead and get this head gasket off the bottom and see what it looks like. Oh, this head looks smooth. Yeah, that sucks. But what sucks more is that it's every one of them. Totally smoked the head. I do not know why. It's clearly been that way for a long time. Not what you hope for in these situations. That one hurt, but you know, we're used to it. Block looks really good, all things considered. There's no real issue that I can see. I'm just gonna have to measure and see if it's warped. Okay, on further inspection, look at cylinder 1. In that area where the metal was missing, this metal head gasket started to blow out, and I bet you that was where we were getting the coolant, right through there. They swapped the head gasket on me, which would make sense that they threw this back together, marketed it as the really cool car that it is, D1SL 2.2, built 6-speed, 4.3, S14, blah, 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 all the things. And they sold it knowing that that head was on its way out. It keeps bothering me that it's only on the intake side like that. I mean, maybe years of them spraying nitrous, because this was a nitrous turbo car and it had a whole kit for it. If y'all know, let me know, man. This is uncharted territory to me. All things considered, this should have been worse, given the fact that the head was that way. Maybe it's warped. We will have to check that, but I'm gonna save that for another day. I think we'll call this torn apart for now, and I appreciate you guys coming along with me while I found the major issue. We thought it was a head gasket. It's a lot more than just a head gasket, but that allows us to just get a fresh head with a valve job, put it all back together, check the lash on these solid lifters, make sure everything is good, and get this thing happy and healthy running on a Link ECU with a new harness and ethanol, so this never happens again. All good content coming up for this car. We just need to wait a little bit while I source this head. So I hope y'all enjoy your weekend. Thanks for hanging out with me. We'll see you guys on the next one.